Welcome everyone to the August 2022 meeting of the Memphis Astronomical Society. I'm your host, Jeremy Velbin. We've got an excellent program for you guys tonight. Welcoming back Bill Weppner, one of our own, former NASA flight controller, who's going to answer the question of when we're going back to the moon. We'll get him on here in just a second. Also, when Bill is done, I've got a few things I need to cover at the end of the presentation, so don't go anywhere. But before we get started, I'll go ahead and share my screen and kick off a few preliminaries here as we start some club business. So we are the Memphis Astronomical Society. And again, we're a nonprofit public service organization promoting interest in education in astronomy and related sciences. Our website is memphisastro.org. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. We have a group and on YouTube. So again, if you haven't, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Hope you get a lot of value out of tonight's meeting. I want to welcome everyone for joining us again. If you are not on our email list and you would like to be, just go to our website, again, memphisastro.org, and click the join button, either in the upper right or on the bottom. It will take you to a separate form, fill out your details, and we send, again, updates about once a week regarding upcoming observing sessions, outreach events, meetings like this one, just anything related to our organization. So that's the best way to engage us. Go to memphisastro.org, join our email list, and that's how you stay in contact with us. Now, if you're interested in outreach services from the Memphis Astronomical Society, we've got a form for that also. Just go to contact, schedule talk and/or telescopes. And again, we'll bring you to a separate form. Fill out as much of the details as you can, whether you're looking for, us to bring out our telescopes and do observing or presentation, both, whatever, however we can serve you. The more information you can give us, the better. We've been pretty busy recently with outreach activities. So this is a great way to request our services. And again, we'd be happy to come out, take our telescopes and, service your group in whatever capacity that you see fit. So that's how you request our services for outreach. There's also a calendar on our website regarding upcoming activities. And again, I just want to highlight a few things coming up this month, August, Dog Days of Summer. Now, tomorrow night, August the 6th, we have an outreach event at Germanshire Park. And the advanced forecast does look promising. So if you can come out, we need telescopes for this event. Again, we'll set up about 8:15 or so. You can see the address there. We will send out an email notice tomorrow morning with the official go, no go notice. So again, it's all weather dependent, but tomorrow night does look promising. It's it's in Memphis, not too far from, well, it's in South Memphis. So again, we'll give you the address, we'll give you the specifics, but if you can bring out your telescope tomorrow night and help us out, that would be fantastic. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're going to be at Pinecrest, and that is August the 20th. And this is actually replacing Burton's. We're not planning to have a dark sky observing site or observing session at Burton's that night. It's all going to be at Pinecrest. So I'll be giving a talk. And again, we need as many telescopes as we can for this event. You can stay all night, you can stay as long as you want. The skies are dark. It's kind of a combination of astronomy and nature. So it's really a great outreach as well as observing event. And again, that's 2 weeks from tomorrow, the 20th of August. We will again send notices when we get closer to the date, especially the go, no go call, depending on the weather. But if you can make that event and bring your telescope, we would really appreciate it. That would be a great opportunity for our organization, and we need scopes. That's kind of the bottom line. The following Saturday, which is the last Saturday in August, August 27, we will be at Burton's Sugar Farm. Again, keep your eye out for the go, no go notice, depending on the weather. We always send the notices out the day of, depending on the forecast. And looking ahead, our Village Creek State Park semi-annual star party is scheduled for September the 24th. I know it's a month and a half in advance, but we got to have telescopes for this also. Need a lot of telescopes, low power, medium power, high power, whatever you can bring, doesn't matter, we'll take it. And again, we do this event twice a year, depending on the weather. We have an indoor program. with the overview of astronomy as well as sky charts, constellation mythology, things like that, followed by an extended observing session. We usually get quite a turnout for this event. Anywhere from 50 to 100 people come out. We need guides also. I mean, if you can't bring your telescope, but you are willing and able to participate, we'll take that also. We always need people in our organization that can help herd the visitors through the maze of telescopes, so to speak. And again, we'll send out more information on this as we get closer to the event in September, but just kind of planning ahead. If you can mark September 24 on your calendar and plan to be there and take a telescope if you can, or serve as a guide, we definitely will take it. We need as many scopes as we can, and we would really appreciate your help. And again, Village Creek State Park is in Wynne, Arkansas. It's about an hour's drive straight west along I-40. Exit 242 is Forest City. A group of us usually meet for dinner there at Delta Q. So we'll be reaching out and requesting a head count for that also. Usually around 5:15 we'll meet for supper, and then about 6:15, 6:30 or so, we'll head up to Wynne and Village Creek State Park for the indoor program at 7:15, and then the observing around 8:15, 8:30. So kind of tentatively be planning on that date, September 24, for this event. And then looking even further ahead, October 21 and 22, there's a dark sky festival in Arkansas. And this is not an MAS event, but we are a participant along with a dozen other or so more, a couple of dozen different organizations, including other astronomical societies and other organizations. This is really to heighten awareness of the growing problem of light pollution and the impact on not only astronomy, but nature and our health in general. But it's going to be a big event. It's at Tyler Bend Campground, about a 4-hour drive from Memphis. You will need to be kind of thinking about camping arrangements. This is filling up fast, especially if you have an RV and you're looking to camp. But again, if you can bring a telescope, or if you just want to come out and participate, or just come out and observe, this would be great. So it'll be near the Buffalo National River. The website is below there, darkskyarkansas.org. And this was postponed the last 2 years as a result of COVID, but we're looking to do it again, or we're looking to do it, I guess, for the first time in a few years on October 21 and 22. So it's another date to mark on your calendar. And we will send more information on this as we get closer. Got several documents, including details of this. So just kind of keep your eye out for that as we get closer. It's a couple of months away. But again, if you're planning in advance, this would be a good date to mark on your calendar as well. All right, I want to welcome some new members. And again, I won't put you on the spot, but I do want to acknowledge you and welcome you to our organization. Richard Kimball, nice to have you aboard. It's always nice to see you at some of our observing sessions as well. Gary Kessel, welcome. Welcome to the Memphis Astronomical Society. Cecil Smith and Robert Ferguson. You were all approved recently, and we'll just kind of give you all a virtual applause and welcome you to our organization. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and we look forward to seeing you at a future event. And of course, if you're a member, check out the Meteorite, some good articles, including a write-up on Artemis 1, which is what our speaker tonight is going to be talking about. So be sure you check that out if you're a member. And I'll mention this also, MAS Slack site is another good way for you to engage our community. And the link is below. I'll send an email notice out about this as well. But several of us are interacting on Slack, not only on the board, but in the astrophotography focus group. But we have a general Slack site for all MAS, basically anyone in our community, whether you're a member or a visitor, just anyone, trying to get this going as well, just to foster more engagement, get your questions answered, get some discussion going on anything, really anything you're interested in, whether it's telescopes, astrophotography, general astronomy questions, just anything of that nature. So think about this. You can download the app on your phone as well. And this is just another opportunity for you to get involved in our community, engage with us. All right, let's jump into the program for tonight.
November 14, 1969, Apollo 12. Astronauts Pete Conrad, Dick Gordon, and Alan Bean are headed for the second moon landing. The need to make a fast decision is about to fall on controller John Aaron. He's in charge of electrical and environmental systems. His call sign, ECOM.
The thing that makes a good ECOM is a natural curiosity about how things work, even if you are not responsible for them.
2, 1. Ignition.
Apollo 12 lifts off. It's Jerry Griffin's first launch as flight director.
And all of a sudden everything, all the data went away, and there was a big static in my headset.
What the hell was that?
I said, ECOM, what do you see?
I looked down at all of my telemetry data, the readouts from the spacecraft, and they were nonsensical.
In the spacecraft, astronaut Alan Bean has no clue either.
Just lost the platform, gang. I don't know what happened.
Lights pop on. The alarm system comes on. More lights than I'd ever seen ever in the simulator. I mean, there was main bus A, main bus B.
I got 3 fuel cell lights, an AC bus light, a fuel cell disconnect, AC bus overload, 1 and 2, main bus A and B out.
It's an electrical failure. The command module has lost main power. Emergency batteries take over, but they'll only last 2 hours. Mission Control is facing a launch abort, jettison the spacecraft, and blow up the Saturn V. Now John Aaron's curiosity pays off. A year earlier, during a test, he had seen a strange pattern of data and had learned about an obscure switch inside the command module that could fix it.
I had seen that pattern before, and it had been 1 year since I had seen it. But it was like that pattern was written in my mind.
The Saturn V's engines keep burning, but the command module on top of the rocket is barely alive, powered only by emergency batteries. Everyone expects ECOM to abort. Then Aaron makes a different call.
I said, flight, tell them to take the SCE to aux.
Flight outside SCE to off.
And I said, what?
Say again, SCE to off.
SCE to aux.
I said, what's that?
It was some obscure switch, signal conditioning electronics to auxiliary.
I turned to the Capcom and Jerry Carr, and I said,
SCE to off, Capcom.
and Carr said, what?
Mission Control comes back and says,
Try SCE to auxiliary, over. SCE to auxiliary. SCE to auxiliary. What the hell is that? SCE to auxiliary.
Turned out Al Bean knew where that switch was. It was back over his shoulder. He threw the switch and we got all of our data back and we could see what the problem was.
We got it back, flight. Looks good. Okay.
Later analysis reveals Apollo 12 had been hit by lightning, which traveled down the rocket's exhaust to the ground, knocking the spacecraft's main electrical system offline. The obscure SCE switch wasn't designed for this situation, but it works.
All right, great story. One of many from the Apollo programs. And here you can see John Aaron, the man who saved Apollo 12, and probably the duration of the Apollo moon landing missions, because if that one is a failure, who knows, maybe they scrapped the whole program. And our speaker tonight, hanging out a few years ago at the Apollo 50th anniversary a few years ago. And of course, they make t-shirts about this. By the way, if you're having a domestic issue at home, this is a good line. It's, honey, don't worry about it. Just keep calm. All we got to do is switch the SCE to aux and we'll be fine. Great story. And of course, for those of you who saw Apollo 13, that final dramatic scene when they splashed down successfully, Bill sent me this image a few years ago, reminding me that he was actually there when the Odyssey splashed down in April of 1970, the successful failure of Apollo 13. And he's been speaking around town for the last several years, telling his Apollo story. It's quite a story. What do flight controllers do? They save Apollo missions and put men on the moon. quite simply. And you got to be able to think on your feet impromptu. So it's really a fascinating history. Well, tonight he's going to tell us and really answer the question that we've all kind of been contemplating. When are we going back? And we've got a series of upcoming missions called Artemis that are getting ready to launch soon and possibly place man back on the moon within the next few years. He's a graduate of the University of Buffalo, BS Electrical Engineering, commissioned second lieutenant, United States Air Force, retired 1980. He's also got a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Oklahoma through the Air Force postgraduate degree program. He was a NASA flight controller from 1968 to 1970, Apollo 7 to 13. He's an associate professor of mathematics, Southwest Tennessee Community College. He's an MAS member and my personal friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Bill Weppner.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. That's a fantastic introduction. And I think that movie probably is going to outshine the two I want to show. But I want to begin by showing you a couple of film clips from that'll set the stage for what we're going to be talking about this evening. I had this idea as I became aware of the Artemis, the first launch of Artemis coming up, and we'll talk specifically about that date. It's coming up very, very, very soon. I thought, well, I wonder if I can put a story together comparing technology today and mission objectives today versus what we did 50 years ago. So let me start with this first movie. I want to make sure I got my computer on. Well, I hope I do. Let me know if you cannot hear the video. By the way, Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo here. Artemis, it looks like she's getting ready for an audition for Hunger Games or something. But let me see if we...
Between 1968 and 1972, America launched 9...
Can you hear that all right?
Yep, we can hear it great.
Great.
Human missions to the moon, 6 of which successfully touched down, allowing 12 men to walk on the lunar surface. NASA's next chapter of lunar exploration, called Artemis, has the task of not just going to the moon to create a long-term human presence on and around it, but also to prepare for ever more complex human missions to Mars. In short, everything we must be able to do here, we must first do here. So, what will an Artemis mission look like? Everything is designed and tested with our most important element in mind, the astronauts. This is their deep space, human-rated spacecraft called Orion, built in 3 parts. The crew module, where up to 4 astronauts will live and work throughout the flight. The service module, with life support systems for the crew and its own engine and fuel reserves. And a launch abort system, with engines capable of pulling the crew module to safety during launch should anything go wrong. To accomplish the task of launching our crew and heavy payloads, NASA is building the Space Launch System, comprising of a cargo hold, an exploration upper stage, a massive core stage, and 2 extended solid rocket boosters. Altogether, this is the world's most powerful rocket, and it exceeds the legendary Saturn V of the Apollo era in numerous ways. Sitting on the launch pad, the entire rocket, fully fueled, weighs just over 6 million pounds, 5.2 million of which is just the fuel. Once ignited, there is no stopping what comes next. All 4 RS-25 engines and the 2 solid rocket boosters come to life, thundering our crew upwards. 2 minutes after ignition, the solid rocket boosters are spent and released. 8 minutes after launch, the core stage is depleted and separated. The upper stage fires briefly, placing Orion into a parking orbit around the Earth. Here, the crew reconfigure the spacecraft and check systems to confirm everything is ready for deep space travel. With a go from mission control, the crew reignite the exploration upper stage engines to leave Earth entirely. The exact timing of this maneuver is critical to reach a speed that can escape Earth's gravitational pull, but also put Orion on a course that will intersect the moon days later. Once this burn is complete, the upper stage of the SLS is jettisoned and the crew aboard Orion coast for several days toward all that awaits them at the moon. Approaching the moon, we see the fundamental differences between Artemis and Apollo. Instead of requiring Orion to serve as an expendable lunar command module or to carry a constrained lunar lander, the Artemis missions will take advantage of a different approach: pre-staging. Everything needed for lunar missions will be positioned in advance by commercial and international partners. This includes rovers, science experiments, and human-rated systems on the surface. But it also includes a dedicated lunar station in orbit around the moon called Gateway. Here at this station, we can pre-stage a robust lunar lander and establish a strong communications relay. Designed with open standards, the Gateway can be expanded as new missions and partnerships develop, allowing multiple human missions on the moon at the same time and enabling ongoing science to be conducted even between human missions. The Gateway is also capable of adjusting its orbit to allow access to every part of the moon, something the Apollo missions could not do. But the real key in this approach is placing Gateway in a unique halo orbit to perfect the maneuvers needed for Mars missions. And with the growing list of commercial and international opportunities, Gateway is the ideal hub between Earth and all that lies beyond. Returning to our crew as they approach Gateway, the Orion must match the elliptical orbit of the station in order to successfully dock. Once on board, pre-selected crew members transfer to the lunar lander, while those assigned to Gateway remain on station. The lunar lander system itself is built for 3 unique steps: descending from the halo orbit of Gateway down to a low lunar orbit, descending from low lunar orbit to the surface, and once the lunar mission is complete, launching from the surface of the moon and ascending all the way back to the orbiting Gateway. Once back aboard the Orion spacecraft and undocked from Gateway, the crew fire their engine once to break out of the halo orbit and once again to sling the spacecraft around the moon, placing it on a multi-day trajectory back towards Earth. As they near the end of this journey, the service module is released, and the crew module is oriented heat shield first. Entering Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, the friction of air slows Orion considerably, while also subjecting it to temperatures of 5,000 degrees. With the Orion now at just 300 miles per hour, a series of parachutes uniquely tested and produced for this moment deploy, decelerating the craft to just 20 miles per hour for splashdown. With each successful mission, Artemis ushers in the next wave of men and women to explore our moon and prove that together we are ready to go beyond.
I have one more film I want to show you. Although its motivation is
Through Artemis,
informative as well.
the twin sister of Apollo, we are returning to the moon. This is Orion, the only human-rated spacecraft in the world capable of deep space travel. And now, the Space Launch System, NASA's most powerful rocket since the Apollo era, stands ready. Having undergone and passed numerous tests, the time has come to complete the journey. With hardware originating from every state in the nation and from partners around the world, Artemis 1 will be the first flight test of each of these components now assembled together. These 2 solid rocket boosters will provide more than 75% of the thrust necessary to leave Earth. Each booster stands 17 stories tall, a full segment more powerful than the SRBs of Shuttle. Together, these boosters are capable of 7.2 million pounds of thrust and will burn for the first 2 minutes of flight. The core stage, at 212 feet, is the tallest rocket stage NASA has ever built. With the rocket's flight computer secured inside, the core stage is designed to hold 2.3 million pounds of fuel. The 196,000 gallons of liquid oxygen and the 537,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen will combine to provide 8.5 minutes of propellant to the 4 massive RS-25 engines mounted below. As proven workhorses of the shuttle fleet, each RS-25 engine has a legacy all its own. Together, these 4 engines provide 2 million pounds of thrust and with the SRBs, are capable of pushing Orion to a speed of 17,000 miles per hour. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage is a 45-foot tall upper stage that offers Orion nearly 25,000 pounds of thrust. Performing two separate burns, the ICPS will first raise Orion's orbit and then, later, propel it out on a trajectory to the moon. The ICPS is powered by a single RL-10 engine that will perform these two burns. This storied engine has propelled robotic missions to every planet in the solar system, including Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, the first space probes to reach interstellar space. Orion's service module, provided by the European Space Agency, is the powerhouse that fuels and propels Orion in space. It stores the spacecraft's propulsion, thermal control, electrical power, and critical life support systems, such as water, oxygen, and nitrogen. Orion's crew module is the pressurized segment of the spacecraft, where future crews will live and work on journeys to the moon. Capable of accommodating 4 crew members for up to 21 days, this capsule includes state-of-the-art avionics, innovative crew systems, and the largest heat shield of its kind for entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. Positioned at the top of Orion is the Launch Abort System, designed to pull the crew to safety in the event of an emergency, on the pad or during launch. 3 solid rocket motors can activate in milliseconds, accelerating from 0 to 500 miles per hour in 2 seconds to propel Orion and crew safely away from the rocket. Now fully assembled, Artemis 1 stands at 322 feet. Artemis is no longer a series of separate parts and programs. United together, this is the first of Artemis's arrows, capable of ushering in the next chapter of human lunar exploration. Only together, this mighty system represents all that is possible, all that we are capable of when united around a stunning vision, with each component playing its part in a grander effort. We, the people of NASA and our partners, we, the people of the Artemis generation, all around this beautiful world, will bear witness to what we are capable of. Together, we are going back to the moon.
Amen. So you'll notice the 2 logos. This says NASA. This doesn't say anything apropos of the US because it's more than the US. It's the European Space Agency. The Canadians are involved, the Italians, the Japanese. So it's completely international. So I'll start by making some comparisons, as was done in these 2 films, between the 2 launch vehicles. This on the right, of course, is the Space Launch System, and with its liftoff thrust is compared with the that of the Saturn V. I kind of wish they would paint that core tube white like the Saturn V. I thought that the Saturn V stack was a much better looking structure, but I don't think that they will. But on launch day, that's going to be quite something to watch. That's again the various parts. Actually, the crew module up here in the launch escape system, and the 3rd stage is just about this part. So the most of it, this is all propellant right here, as of course, along with the 2 solid rocket boosters. Now, how about the spacecraft? This was Apollo laying on their backs, and I never flew, of course, but I did go through the simulator at times, and I think I had a couple of sessions of about 45 minutes. And believe me, with all the instrument panel above and over your head, your arms get tired fast. I suspect all these astronauts, even today, do some weight training. because that pre-launch, until they get in weightless condition, that's trying on the arms. This is the enlarged capsule, and the larger capsule of the Orion is about 29% larger than was the Apollo's capsule, which of course only housed 3. For instrument panel, this is the instrument panel so well shown on the movie that Jeremy introduced with us. That's the Apollo instrument panel. This would be the instrument panel of the Orion. Now, this is one of the shortcomings I have, and I'll have to update as we get further into the Artemis program, but this is the best view of what I think is the Orion instrument panel, but this could be perhaps a simulation, a mock-up, a concept. So as things solidify and we go with a crew mission, then I will get some better slides, more accurate slides, but it'll look something like this, and a lot of it will be glass cockpit, of course. I started to make this slide last night, and then I said, well, I just didn't complete it. But that, of course, is the PINGS, the primary guidance and navigation control system, onboard computer for Apollo. Compare that with what Orion's going to have. And Orion is going to be the latest version and also plugged into an open architecture, which means it can be updated, both software and hardware. The two films, for some reason, they seem to emphasize this launch escape system. It's certainly more sleek than Apollo, but they talked about milliseconds. That milliseconds is 300 milliseconds. And if the amount of thrust is about, if they have to use it, that crew is going to come off that booster with about 10 Gs for about 4 seconds. It's going to be one terrific ride. Let's hope they never, ever have to use it. And the service module is back here. And this is made by the European Space Agency with this interconnecting ring. Compare the two. On the left is Apollo command and service module, and the crew, they call it the crew module and service module on Orion, and with the specifications for both. It shows that it's being constructed and stacked. Notice solar panels on the service module, which did not exist on Apollo. And the crew combinations are going to have a galley. God, why don't they have a spa? Oh, wait a minute, there it is. So it's going to be, by comparison with Apollo, this is going to be 5-star. And I'm sure some of this will go in this space here. And I came across this slide and I thought this was fun. Compare this, the two, again, this is about 29% larger than this. And lest we forget Mercury and the accommodations that the likes of Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom had. So we've come a long, long way. Ground control. This was ground control for Apollo and ground control for actually the International Space Station. And the one right next door to that is Orion, which is very, very similar. Displays all over. These were cathode ray tube displays, strictly black and white. And of course, we've come a long way with that technology as well. Think of the space to walk around. Big improvement in creature comforts. So where are we in this? We're coming up on Artemis 1, and I'll talk about that launch date in just a moment. That will be unmanned. The launch will be a full-up Saturn Space Launch System, SLS, full up as you saw in the movie. But the crew module will be on board, but it will just be mannequins. The first flight with a crew, 4-person crew, will be Artemis 2, and then we'll get into the gateway construction. As long ago as, well, 12 years, we've been testing some of the escape systems for Artemis and some of the pre-launch, and these were pre-launch objectives. And these were some of the mission objectives of each of these. So we're in here now at 2022. And there it is. So for your homework, be up and around at about 7:30 in the morning to, I think the window is about 3 hours. And if all goes well, NASA made that commitment, I think it was yesterday or today, that the window looks good on the 29th. They're going to have rollout on the 18th to the launch pad. The two backup dates are those. So what is the objectives for Artemis 1? Well, we'll go into Earth orbit and then do a translunar injection burn. And I want to expand this part here and go down some of these objectives. So we've done translunar injective. At this point, this is what's 6, 8, mid-course correction if necessary. Oftentimes, and at least I found on Apollo, and I suspect it's going to be the same on Artemis, some of these mid-course corrections, although they're planned, they're not necessary because the burns are just that accurate. At this point in time, we'll do what's called an outbound powered flight from about 60 miles in proximity to the moon to this DRO, distant retrograde orbit insertion, and we'll enter distant retrograde orbit at about this point. And this will take us within about 40,000 nautical miles of the lunar surface. So this is higher and farther from Earth than man has ever been before, or the spacecraft. And then eventually we'll depart. At this point, we will depart the distant retrograde orbit and come back close to the moon and then do a slingshot effect to return to Earth with possible mid-course correction at about here. Now, I want to point this out to you. I just found this maybe a week ago. What is all this distant retrograde orbit and so on? I'm not an orbital mechanic. Let me enlarge this a little bit. If you want to look this up, I'm going to collaborate with Joanne Rhodes and maybe team teach and give something like this to her students and have her do an explanation of this, the orbital mechanics. But in conjunction with this site, there are 3 very, very short, maybe 1.5 minute animations that are really, really good, explaining precisely all about distant orbital, the distant retrograde orbit. Let me go back to play. What it amounts to is the moon is rotating around the Earth in this direction, and the retrograde orbit is in really the opposite direction. That's it in a nutshell. Of course, we're like Apollo, we'll still do a water entry. And, but what amazes me is the diameter of these chutes. That's the length of my driveway. These are big, big chutes. And we can successfully recover the spacecraft with 2. So one could be reefed or torn, and we can still have a successful water splashdown. Now, Artemis 2 will be manned, and that's going to essentially be a lunar flyby. It will get within, what was that number I wrote down? I think it's 4,000 nautical miles of the lunar surface. So we'll still be a distance from the lunar surface, but not in that retrograde orbit. And it's going to be just up and around and come back to test out the entire crew, the 4-person crew, and the Orion spacecraft. Now we get into gateway construction, and here's where I think things are still in the to be determined category. This looks like something that connects from my catalytic converter. Can be, but this is a beautiful artist's conception of this gateway. What this is going to enable us to do is have this in orbit like a miniature International Space Station. There's a comparison coming up to serve in orbit around the moon. So we'll never have the moon in eclipsing the spacecraft to Earth. The Earth will always have a clear line of sight to the Earth by virtue of docking with Gateway and then transferring into another landing craft. It's called a Human Landing System, HLS, to defend to the moon. And that's what this is. And this is conceptual. And but some of these parts, this one here developed by Maxar, and there's another one by Grumman, the Habitational Logistics Outpost. That's going to be launched very soon as the first two components of the Gateway system. And that's going to be launched on, well, to be, that's coming up on the next slide or two as well. This is a spacecraft, or rather the launch vehicle for that. So comparing the International Space Station and Gateway. Again, the crew were here. It's there. It's been there. It's being crewed continuously. This is just, you know, a part of the year, 1 month out of the year. And Gateway is going to have what we heard yesterday is about 3 docking ports for Orion to dock with. By the way, if you want any screenshots of any of these, feel free. If you want me to go back when I'm finished to any of these for a screenshot, just yell. All right, these are the 2 that will be coupled together and launched as one system on one of Elon Musk's boosters. And this is where we get a little goofy. About a year ago, NASA selected SpaceX as the human lander for Artemis. And I don't know if this is, I asked this question at a presentation yesterday, and I didn't ask the question right, but I didn't get an answer that satisfied me. The human lander may look like this here, because that spacecraft of SpaceX's is huge. I've heard comments that it's as large as the International Space Station, and it's got all kinds of capability. And one of the best things, it's much, much less costly than is the Space Launch System. And another thing, the Space Launch System, curiously enough, we can only turn one of those things around 1 per year. And so we would be talking about 1 4-person crew to the moon per year. So I'm going to ask for your indulgence for additional time as this starts to take shape, as we start to realize some accomplishments by actual launches. I'd like to come back maybe in, who knows, 6 months, a year, and just update you, maybe with a few of these slides and then some more, just to explain, well, where are we today and what's the future of Gateway? Because Gateway, to me, is going to be really exciting. That's a way to add all kinds of flexibility to this lunar exploration. And of course, it ultimately could be the stepping stone to Mars. I'm not a great fan of that. I personally feel that we can do an awful lot with unmanned spacecraft than a 3-month or 4-month one-way journey to Mars, but nobody's going to ask my vote anyway. But I would like to come back and just keep you posted, because I think, to use a cliche, this is definitely a work in progress. By the way, some of these slides feature this gentleman here, Paul Marshall. He's one of the assistant directors on Orion. And if you want to access his presentation, it's about an hour and a half. Very, very informative. I stole some of his slides. You can Google NASA Alumni League, NASA Alumni League /JSC, Johnson Space Center, and you'll come up with this homepage. If you go to events, there's a drop-down menu saying past events, and that's his. As a matter of fact, the presentation that was made yesterday on Gateway is also on this list of past events. However, there's no link. They may add a link to that. I've got to send them an email and see if that's going to be available, because that likewise up Gateway, there was an awful lot of information passed along, and I'd like to play that again. I want to close with sort of a sales pitch. I gave this talk 6 months ago over at U of M, and I came across this because this is not my generation. This is the generation of your kids, your grandkids, your students. And NASA has a very, very active intern program. If you Google here and then go to some of these slides, it'll explain what it is, where it is, and how to apply. So with that, I'll pass along to you a couple of, 3 ways to email me if you have any questions or want to see anything else. But that's what I'd like to present tonight. I'll pause for if you have any questions or want to see anything again.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Yeah, I think we got a few minutes. How much time do you have for questions, just so we understand?
10 minutes.
Okay, excellent. Anne has her hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Bill. That was fantastic. You had said that the Gateway Station would only be habitated for 30 days in a year?
That's what NASA is saying, yes.
Is there a reason that they decided to do it that way, or why not more frequently?
Well, it might have to do, and this is conjecture on my part, it might have to do with the launch vehicle, which launch vehicle we're going to use. Are we going to use this space launch system? Because we can't turn those things around any more than 1 per year. The other thing might be, how well can we stock it so that we can maintain a crew longer than that. But if we can do this with the International Space Station in low Earth orbit, I don't see why that would be a deal breaker. So let me, without trying to do any more conjecturing, let me see if I can get an answer to that. Just why such a low, a brief period, 30 days a year. And I will answer you when I get an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Dr. Peer, your hand is raised.
So what kind of projected schedule do we have for these launches, especially 1 and 2? I mean, is 1 this year? Because we haven't heard anything.
Oh, 1 is in a couple of weeks, the 29th of this month.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything. At least I haven't.
Well, what I've done successfully is just Google something like when is Artemis 1 going to be launched, and then -NASA. And then, of course, I did attend this presentation yesterday that was sponsored by the NASA Alumni League. But it's being published in Space and some of these other publications, but I don't think it's made the mainstream news yet. No.
So when is 2 and 3 scheduled to be launched?
Well, 2 will be a flyby. And I think they were talking about maybe 2024. I think that would be optimistic. So I can speak fairly definitely about one, and that's it. But again, as I can get dates, as NASA publishes, I can, do this again and say, okay, here's where we are, and this is what to look for. But the best date, the most firm, and the only specific date I can name right now is the 29th of this month for Artemis 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? So if all goes according to plan with these launches, does NASA have an ETA of when we could see boots on the ground again on the moon?
Well, that would be Artemis 3. And I think in the meantime, we have to have Gateway, maybe not complete, but functional, that we can do the docking, the transfer, and the descent, and the ascent, and the redocking. And so Gateway's got to come along. And that's what, they're going to do soon. So I'm not going to hazard a date.
Yeah.
I would think before the decade is out.
Yeah. To kind of put things in perspective, imagine it's 1962 and we're reliving the events of
Yes,
and trying to get there before 1970.
but it's so much more ambitious. I mean, we're building things, and then like you saw in that one slide, let me go back to, if I can find it quickly. Now this is what you asked about, Ann. If you want to take a screenshot of that. But, we're talking about some activity on the lunar surface.
It's an ambitious plan for sure, when you look at the amount of material that they're trying to send out there.
Yes, yes.
So this is one leg and extended. But if you think about it, if you compare it to what happened in the 60s, where were we in 62? As the early stages of what, Mercury, Gemini?
Right. And look at what we did in 6 years. But here's Artemis 3 and deep space crew missions, but we've got to do this with Gateway first, at least a part of it. So, and this is conjecture on my part, and SpaceX and Elon Musk, I mean, he's a genius and he's a visionary, but he's kind of a maverick. And I mean, I don't know what's going to come out of Twitter. This is probably almost slanderous, but I mean, it's possible he could be in jail for all we know. I doubt it. But and again, with multi-nations being part of this, things can go wrong, and politics can get in the way. But that said, I don't think we'd ever be able to do this financially as a USA venture. I just don't think we have the money or the commitment. But so this, I think, is the way to go, maybe the only way to go. But there are slowdowns, and I anticipate.
Speaking of politics,
pardon me?
I was going to say, speaking of politics, I hate to bring this up. I think China has made the news also as far as their lunar ambitions, and specifically the South Pole. I think it's Crater Schiaparelli on the South Pole that's supposed to have water at the base because it doesn't see sunlight. I mean, it could be another crater name, but isn't that the area that NASA is targeting? And could there be a potential conflict with maybe getting into another space race with China for that part of the moon?
I'm pausing because I'm writing.
Okay.
I don't know, but we'll find out.
Yeah, again, conjecture right now, but certainly the political environment is something that factors into this as well.
Oh, yes. And then the news of this week has you know, we're not on the best of terms with China right now.
Right. Or Russia.
That too.
Any other questions? We got a couple minutes here and then we got to let them go.
Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. I wasn't sure exactly how long it would take, but this has worked out just perfectly because I do have a final exam and we're doing it by Zoom. And to accommodate the kids, I've scheduled 3 different sittings today. So we've done 2 and the third one is about 8:15. And so this is going to work out just great.
Excellent. Well, you're always welcome, Bill. And for those of you who come to our meetings at the planetarium, you can see Bill there. He is an MAS member. He lives in Memphis and he's a regular participant at our meetings. So definitely the next time we meet at the Mosh Planetarium, I'm not sure when that's going to be. It could be a month or 2 yet because of their schedule, but Bill usually comes out, so be sure and track him down, especially as we get closer to some of these missions. And
I'll bring my computer and thumb drive with me if you want to see this again. It's not that long. And this, as I say, will be a work in progress, and I can update this as day by day as we go along. I added a couple of slides this morning. So yeah, I think this is going to be a fun thing because it's
This episode of the
a
History
moving
Hour
target.
on Magellan TV.
yeah, this could just be one leg in a much broader effort,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
hopefully. So I think it's fascinating. I mean, you know, I missed out on the space race of the 60s and the moon landings of the
Well, that
early
wasn't your
60s.
fault.
Well, I'm still contemplating whether I should sue my parents for having me too late because I missed out on all the fun.
Well, I'll tell you something, and let me show you a slide here, because I used it the engineers program, and it just oh, quickly. Here we are. But I said, maybe Hollywood had it right back in the 1950s. And I
Right.
said, there's good news and bad news to this. I was alive when this movie was released. And this is what the spaceship looked like. Rocket Chick XM, Lloyd Bridges, Hugh O'Brien. Well, this is Elon Musk. So I said, the good news is I was alive when this movie was released. The bad news is I was alive when this movie was released.
Right. Yeah, age will do that, I suppose. What a story and what a legacy. And I appreciate the memo that you sent me, Bill, that you plan to live forever. So we'll continue this.
Did I say that? Well, we're working on it. And this helps, believe me.
Absolutely. You gotta have something to live for. So I think it's incredibly exciting. For those of you who watched it and witnessed it 50 years ago, I'll be envious for the rest of my life. That was really an exciting accomplishment and just monumental. So again, it's always, the moon is the most obvious thing you look at when you look at the night sky. So it's always a source of wonder and fascination and curiosity. So Bill, keep us posted.
I sure will. And you talked about that, you know, the players were guys like John Aaron.
Yep.
Fresh out of college, 26, 27 years old, but fantastic problem solvers.
Natural curiosity and quick on their feet. That's what it took.
You
to get
bet.
done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well,
Well,
you've
Bill-
been a great audience. Thank you for your questions, and I'll work the next few days to get some answers.
Excellent.
The easy one, if I can pry it out of NASA, is to get back to Ann with her answer. Why only 30 days? That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting question. It'll be
Thanks,
interesting
Bill.
to see that. All right, Bill, we're going to let you go because you got to get to your exam. Thank you again.
Perfect. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you all soon.
Sounds great.
Be well and stay dry.
Be well and stay dry. Appreciate it, Bill. Everyone else, just stay on for a minute if you don't mind. I'm going to wrap a few things up here. I got a few slides to cover, and then we'll kind of open it up here for some general Q&A discussion, whatever. People can stay on as long as they want. So just a few news items for the month of August. So one of the things that came out this past month is an answer to the question, why are Jupiter's rings not as glorious as Saturn's rings? And it turns out that researchers at the University of California, Riverside published a paper answering that question. And the 4 Jovian moons are to blame. We found that the Galilean moons of Jupiter, one of which is the largest moon in our solar system, would very quickly destroy any large rings that might form. Massive planets form massive moons, which prevents them from having substantial rings. Although Jupiter may have had intermittent periods of substantial ring systems, their long-term sustainability may be severely truncated by the presence of the Galilean moons and associated resonances. And here you can see another image from the James Webb Space Telescope, infrared, and you can see there showing a very thin silhouette of the Jovian ring or the Jupiter ring. So mystery solved. And Enceladus, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology published a new study suggesting that Enceladus's ocean is a little less salty than Earth's ocean, specifically 30 grams of salt per 1 kilogram of water on Enceladus compared to 35 on Earth. This new finding bolsters the possibility of life in Enceladus's ocean. Saltier subsurface oceans should, generally speaking, have thicker ice over a planet's or moon's poles. Less salty oceans would have thinner ice. The team also found evidence for heat emanating from the ocean floor on Enceladus, hydrothermal vents, which of course are the source of extremophiles here on Earth. Last year, scientists also reported evidence in the Cassini data for a lot of methane in Enceladus's ocean. Could this be an indication of methanogenic organisms in the ocean? So Enceladus continues to be an intriguing world to continue to study. And this marks I believe, the 154th anniversary this month of the discovery of helium, which we now know to be the second most abundant element in the universe and one of the main constituents of stars. First hint of helium was discovered on August 18th, 1868, a total solar eclipse, as a bright yellow line at a wavelength of 587.45 nanometers. Norman Lockyer first proposed it as a new element and gave it the name of, with the Greek word for the sun, which is helios or helium. And Sir William Ramsay was able to, he discovered terrestrial helium by isolating it from the mineral cleveite. So this month marks the anniversary of the discovery of this element. And of course, James Webb, we've all seen the images and the news. Very spectacular. The data is still coming in. We're going to table James Webb until next month. We've got one of our best teachers coming back to present on the findings of the James Webb. And we may do a couple of talks coming up in the next few months on this, just because there's so much information, so much data, and we want a little extra time to process this and get organized before we formally give an update on this. But obviously this made the news earlier this month, July 12, the release of these images. Absolutely breathtaking, spectacular, and I'm sure you've seen the news and are reading about it. One thing I did want to mention about James Webb, and I was interviewed for the Daily Memphian on the telescope and some of the findings, and one of the questions came up from the interviewer about the cost of the telescope. And it's a legitimate question when you think about the general layperson on the street. You know, it costs $11 billion to build this telescope. What are we getting for it? I mean, could those funds conceivably be used elsewhere for something more beneficial, more efficient? So to kind of put that in perspective, here is a snapshot, if you will, a simplification of the total government spend in the year 2020-21, last year. The US government spent $6.82 trillion. So to put that in perspective, imagine each one of these dots on this graphic represents $1 billion worth of spend from our federal government. And that's just last year, the year 2021 alone. So when you think about $11 billion as the total spend for the James Webb Space Telescope, that would be the equivalent of 11 of these dots, 11 out of 6,818 dots. And that's not over 1 year, that's spread out over 30 years. And that's not just the United States, but other space agencies around the globe also contributed to this project. So when you think about it from that perspective, $11 billion sounds like a lot of money to you and I, but compared to the grand scale of what our government spends every year, it really amounts to not much, a drop in the bucket. And I don't know, I think the benefit, we'll see, but to continue to explore the cosmos and our place within it, as well as spark the imagination, the curiosity, and the fascination, some young person is going to look at these images, make a decision in their lives to put themselves on a path to become the next great scientist, great engineer, great entrepreneur, innovator, whatever, and contribute back to society a significant portion. Who knows? The next Elon Musk could be out there, you know, the next Steve Jobs, whoever that could build a corporation that doesn't exist yet, or an effort, an endeavor that doesn't exist yet, being inspired by the effort of this telescope. So those are just my personal thoughts. I'm sure everyone has their own opinion on this as well, but just wanted to put this in perspective. And again, stay tuned for a future meeting where we'll discuss the James Webb in more detail. All right, a couple other things here. We had a great observing session at Burton's on July 23. I want to thank everyone who came out. We had several newbies, a couple of Dobbs. We had a great night for observing, and a couple of great images came out too. One of our newest members, Richard Kimball, took this image. He was out most of the night. This is the Eastern Veil Nebula. Oh, very nice, Richard. And Steve Wright took this image of M27. It wasn't at Burton's, but it was earlier this month. And this is another favorite target. This is really a spectacular image. This, of course, is a planetary nebula. So you're looking at what our sun will look like billions of years into the future when it swells up and the core and the envelope separate and basically the star dies. So the planetary nebula, they're really spectacular. This is M27, the Dumbbell Nebula in the constellation Cygnus. So very nice image, Steve. And I mentioned this also, the comet C2017 K2 Pan-STARRS in close proximity to
constellation Ophiuchus.
The globular cluster M10 in Ophiuchus. And I initiated a challenge to astrophotographers to capture this on July 15. And Richard got this image. Now the comet here is a little faint, but you can see it here as a smudge in this image. And then of course the globular here, M10. So thank you, Richard, for submitting that image. And then Gary Woodall from Texas got this image. This is really spectacular. So again, you got the globular and you got the comet. You can see the coma and a little bit of the tail. And you can see this is about what you would see through a telescope. We had it out the other night at Burton's through my 20-inch as well as the 12-inch Dob. And yeah, we got a comet this year. Who knew? I mean, going back to our May talk, we didn't know what kind of events were coming up this year. So very nice image, Gary. Thank you again for submitting. This is spectacular. And again, check out our Facebook group for these images as well as others that our members who are into astrophotography are posting. It's fun to look at. And speaking of astrophotography, I believe our next meeting, we have an astrophotography focus group that meets on each month around the time of the full moon. And it's on the calendar for the 17th of August. Rick usually hosts that, and Merrill, some of our other astrophotographers. And if you missed the last session in July, it's on our YouTube channel at Memphis Astronomical Society. So if you're into astrophotography, and again, this is an informal meeting, basically we just get the teachers and the learners together to discuss and share and ask questions and share ideas. We go through image processing with PixInsight, as well as data sets that are captured. So yeah, the best and brightest, but you don't have to be the best and brightest. Just anyone who's interested in photography, even if you're a newbie, this is a great opportunity to get some mentoring and to basically participate in a group with some of our seasoned as well as new astrophotographers. So check this out. And Rick, I don't know if you had anything you want to say about this. We'll send a notice out.
Jeremy, Merrill's basically taking the lead in programming now for that, and which is a good thing because I haven't had time. I think they're looking at some one-shot color cameras to talk about image processing for that, and a few other things. If you are interested in this and want to get into it, shoot me an email at rick@memphisastro.org, and I'll send you an invitation to join our Slack chat group. And in that group, you'll find out more about the meetings we have planned, what the upcoming topics are. You can ask questions to the various experts in our group, and that'll become pretty. You'll figure who those are pretty quick once you get in, start reading the ongoing discussions there. But it's a lot of fun, and I learn a lot anytime I got the time to sit down and start reading through the messages back and forth. So come join us if you're interested in astrophotography at any level, from pointing your cell phone at the eyepiece to customized astrophotography rigs.
Absolutely. And we have some of our past meetings recorded as well. But yeah. And again, we'll post this notice on our website also, memphisastro.org. And if you're on our email list, just keep an eye out. We'll send a notice out. But yeah, great opportunity for learning and just interacting more or less with people who are passionate about this hobby. So that's all I've got for tonight. So I will open it up. If anybody has any other comments or questions or anything in general, but basically that's our meeting for this month. And again, our website is memphisastro.org. Check out our Facebook group and our YouTube channel. And there's nothing else. We'll wrap it up and stay tuned for notices. Again, tomorrow night, we're planning to observe at Germanshire Park. And if you can make that, great. And then toward the end of the month, we've got an event at Pinecrest on the 20th and at Burton's on the 27th. So we'll send notices out for observing coming up soon. Anybody got anything else? All right.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And again, looking forward to, we got some strong programming coming in the next couple months. So mark your calendars. Not sure when we're going to be back at Mosh, sometime in the fall, but we got some great speakers and some great programming coming up. So stay tuned.